Hello, and welcome to Soren's Corner, Episode 1, A Look into the Yazidi People. The story of the Yazidi people in Iraq is one of persecution, endurance, and extreme marginalization. However, their legacy and strength has been preserved over generations in their oral traditions. Today, we will talk about the Yazidi historical persecution, their rich oral tradition that has sustained them, and a look into the reality of the current life of the Yazidi people. First, let's go over the history of their persecution. The Yazidi people faced many persecutors over the length of their existence, from their Kurdish neighbors and the Ottoman Empire, leading to their modern day persecution and struggles. The Ottoman Empire always viewed the Yazidi people as the other and marginalized them into a minority. However, starting from the 1640s to the fall of the empire, the Ottomans repeatedly waged campaigns specifically targeting the Yazidi people. In 1916, over 40,000 Ottoman soldiers targeted the Yazidi community, killing thousands and burning their homes down. After the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire, British involvement in the area plagued the minorities, including the Yazidi people. The Yazidi people found themselves even more marginalized than they had previously been, as nationalism from British involvement plagued the area. Nilda Ferraro, in his work The Other Kurd, Yazidis in Colonial Iraq, outlines the root of this crisis. The British involvement brought about the centralization of the country, which ostracized the Yazidi people among other minorities. Britain began to further colonize Iraq, leading to a centralized state. Although British involvement and centralization did not deny the Yazidi people representation and they were allowed in the government, it created a power struggle that became very daunting to the Yazidi people, as they were far outnumbered and had less power, as they were labeled a minority. This rivalry fueled tensions between the groups to rise in the area, leading to even more persecution in the area, though this persecution was not always personified as a physical threat for this time period. Unfortunately, as the 21st century drew near, this changed. Let's take a break and move on to the rich oral tradition that bonds and sustains the Yazidi people. Christine Allison explains in her work that the religious minority shares traits from other religions in the area, such as Sufism from their Iranian neighbors. Through these links, the Yazidi people transferred their oral traditions to their neighbors and their descendants. This act of creating a lineage through oral tradition sustained their further generations through the constant persecution and battles. Allison summarizes this concept perfectly in a line from her work, The Yazidi Oral Tradition in Iraq, Kurdistan, by saying, "They communicated with their neighbors and passed on their community, history, literature, wisdom, and religious traits to their descendants orally." The sheer act of communicating the soul of the Yazidi people orally allowed them to communicate in any circumstance and kept the spirit strong and allegiance strong in times of hardship and persecution. Let's move forward to more modern times. It becomes increasingly apparent that the hardships of the Yazidi people continues to this day. For this information, I turn to the BBC and Michelle Liu from the Northwestern's Human Rights Journal for some more clarity. In 2014, the terrorist organization ISIS launched an attack against the Yazidi people that has lasting effects to this day. These attacks can only be labeled as a genocide and were truly, truly horrific. ISIS isolated and killed thousands of men in atrocious manners. Remaining younger boys were forced to fight for ISIS, and over 6,000 women were forced into sexual slavery. Thousands of the Yazidi people found themselves displaced and trapped in terrible living conditions. The fall of ISIS, unfortunately, did not mean vindication for the victims, but sparked a lawsuit. Some of the surviving Yazidi people have decided to rightfully sue al-Baghdadi's widow for the atrocities she witnessed and partook in. His widow has responded to this lawsuit in the BBC interview Iraq's Yazidi Fight for Justice with correspondent Faraz Kilani by saying that she had no control or means to fight back. She states that she as well was a victim, and in a different manner, she could not have possibly helped these women without endangering herself and her loved ones. This lawsuit has been a slow and tedious and difficult pursuit. However, with their strength and their oral traditions fueling them, I have no doubt that they will see at least a small level of success in their pursuit. Thank you for joining me, and have a good week. This has been Soren's Corner, Episode 1.